On that, I wanted to go from something Richard Haas just said, which is one of the consequences is that we are now perceived as an unreliable ally because people overseas are not going to make the distinction here to say this is Donald Trump making this decision. This, for people overseas, this is the Americans, and America is developing this reputation. Our allies, the guys that are getting left behind in the field, aren't saying, well, we understand it's just one guy in the White House. He is the personification of the nation. He is making this decision. But there's another problem with that. The flip side is that Vladimir Putin, in particular, is coming across as the guy who never walks away from a friend. Putin is the one telling people, saying, when Russia sticks by you, we stick. And the Americans walk, but we're always here. We're the reliable partner, not the Americans. And that is devastating for American foreign policy.
It is devastating, Richard, and of course, you only have to look at this one country, Syria, to see what Vladimir Putin did when, of course, it seemed the entire world, the United States, rightly wanted Assad gone. Putin stood by his side. Putin brought Russian troops into the Middle East, into Syria, for the first time since 1973. Putin has been a steadfast ally of Assad, even when he shouldn't have been. Here, you have the United States cutting and running on a whim, and that's the most dangerous part of this. On a whim, Donald Trump decides on a phone call, once again, without talking to anybody, without going through the channels of talking to advisors who have spent their entire life working this out. He just does it on a whim. And our allies across the globe are left saying, wait a second, so Russia stands by their allies even in the darkest moments. The United States can't even do it through a phone call.
So you're right, Joe. So what will this mean then? It means that American allies get up in the morning and they have to really make a historic choice. If they decide that we're simply too unreliable and too unpredictable, they've really only got two choices. Either they essentially defer, or if you want to use a rougher word, appease a more powerful neighbor, Russia, China, whomever it might be, Iran, in their neighborhood, or they basically say, okay, we've got to become more self-reliant. And among other things, this could be making the world safe for proliferation, whether it's conventional arms or conceivably even nuclear arms. Either way, we have less influence. Either way, it becomes, I think, a much more turbulent world, and that is the direction we're going. Essentially, you're seeing, it's rare to see history so up close and unfolding, but what we're actually seeing, if you take a step back, this is the end of 70 years of the American era in the world. We are voluntarily abdicating our role, and it's the Russians, the Iranians, and others who are benefiting, or countries will simply take matters into their own hand. This will be seen as historic stuff in terms of the trends of history.
Well, and the great tragedy is, after stumbling through the past 19 years, 19 years in this new century, are the 18 years since September 11th. You can talk to the greatest minds of this generation, the greatest military strategists of this generation, and they can recount chapter and verse what we get wrong in Afghanistan, what we get wrong in Iraq. But to a person, they will tell you that we got Syria right in this respect, in defeating ISIS. We have a small footprint there. It is a sustainable footprint. And we've used a limited number of men and women, and our Kurdish allies, in such a way, think about this, with this small footprint, we've thwarted Iran's expansion, we've thwarted Russia's expansion in the area, we've thwarted Syria's expansion, and we have continued to crush ISIS. And now Donald Trump is surrendering.
Yeah.
He's appeasing Putin, he's appeasing Erdogan, and the consequences of this are going to be deadly.
And I think it's worth looking at some of the Republicans